The Krath Holy Crusade, from 3997 to 3996 BBY, was a defining series of battles that not only shaped the events before and during the Great Sith War, but also formed the backbone of the conflict. It was the culmination of a violent power shift in the Empress Teta system, one orchestrated by Aleema and Satal Keto, heirs to the Teton monarchy, and leaders of the Sith-aligned Krath cult. Their takeover marked the beginning of the Crusade, as they sought to impose their dark vision on the galaxy. As the Crusade unfolded, the Krath expanded their reach, seizing worlds and constructing a network of dark temples on several planets they controlled. The Crusade began around the same time as the Mandalorians launched their own Holy Crusade against the Basiliscans on their homeworld, Basilisk. It would only come to an end with the ultimate defeat of Dark Lord Exar Kun on Yavin 4, marking a dramatic conclusion to the Krath's brutal campaign.
You are listening to the Star Lords Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Heirs of an Empire.
Satal Keto, a human male hailing from the planet Empress Teta, was born into a powerful lineage as a son of Lord Keto, nephew of Lady Magda Keto, and cousin to Aleema Keto. Boredom had always been a dangerous companion for Satal and Aleema Keto, two of the galaxy's most privileged heirs. Together, with a few of their socialite friends, they formed a secret society named it Krath after a character from their fairy tales that were popular in their youth. Krath, in these stories, was depicted as a dark magician god, a figure both alluring and terrifying. Intrigued by these tales, the cousins' curiosity about the ancient Sith Empire grew, especially after learning about its role in instigating the Great Hyperspace War in 5000 BBY. This fascination ignited their desire to learn more, driving them to seek out the secrets of the dark side on their own. It wasn't long before they found themselves deep in Sith lore, and they named their society after the very figure that had sparked their interest. Even their yacht, the Krath Enchanter, was a direct nod to the ancient myth, an ironic tribute to the power they were beginning to covet. Their hunger for knowledge led them to Coruscant, where they visited the Galactic Museum, hoping to find any trace of the ancient Sith that might further fuel their growing obsession. The curator, eager to impress the privileged visitors, granted them access to the Hall of the Sith, a sacred space dedicated to the study of Sith history. It was there that the pair discovered an exhibit in the works titled Dark Lords of the Sith, and it was in this room of forbidden knowledge that they hoped to unearth something valuable. The curator, initially cautious about granting them full access to the restricted section, was eventually swayed by the cousins' persistence. He reasoned that the artifacts on display were of little use to anyone who didn't already wield the dark side, making theft unlikely, but he couldn't have been more wrong. Aleema's subtle influence led Satal to steal an ancient Sith spellbook, bound in a language they didn't understand. It was a bold, reckless act that would have far-reaching consequences, though neither of them knew it at the time. Returning to their lodgings, their excitement was tempered by frustration. They had the book, but no way to decipher its contents. As they scrolled through the HoloNet news, their attention was captured by a report about a group of dark side users causing havoc on the planet Onderon. The idea that dark side practitioners still roamed the galaxy intrigued them. Perhaps, they thought, these individuals could unlock the secrets of the book they had stolen. It was a tantalizing lead. Without a second thought, Satal and Aleema packed up their belongings, abandoned their quarters, and set course for Onderon, aboard their luxury yacht. It was a decisive moment in their descent into the dark side, one that would mark the beginning of their new, dangerous path. They were no longer mere curious heirs, they were now seekers of forbidden power.
Dark Alliance. The Krath arrived amidst an ongoing battle, known as the Naddist Uprising. Sith cultists led by the dark side acolyte King Amen fought against Republic and Jedi forces, battling above and on the world. Their yacht was shot down and crash-landed in the heart of the capital city, Isis. They barely escaped the wreckage as their ship erupted into flames behind them, spilling into the chaotic streets. After some time spent exploring the city and asking questions about Sith knowledge, they were finally granted an audience with the ruler of Onderon, King Amen. The withered monarch, a twisted figure barely kept alive within a clanking durasteel exoskeleton, was intrigued by the pair and the ancient Sith texts they carried. Sensing their potential as Sith initiates, Amen offered his assistance. Satal, however, remained wary, openly doubting the old king's power and relevance. But his skepticism quickly vanished when Amen unleashed a burst of dark-side sorcery, afflicting Satal with a sudden sickness, and in doing so, deepening Aleema's connection to the dark side. With their attention secured, Amen revealed his personal collection of Sith artifacts, focusing on a powerful amulet capable of deciphering ancient Sith writings. He agreed to give the amulet to Satal, but demanded a price, a copy of their Sith spellbook. Satal reluctantly agreed, and while a scribe transcribed the forbidden texts, Amen offered them a glimpse of his true power. Jedi Master Arcajeth chained to a wall and writhing under the effects of dark Sith magic. As Amen leaned in to mock the suffering Jedi, a team of Jedi Knights stormed the palace to rescue their master. Caught off guard, Amen's defenses crumbled. The Jedi overwhelmed his forces, and in the chaos, Jedi Knight Ulic Qel-Droma struck a decisive blow, smashing Amen's mechanical frame and incapacitating him. At that moment, the spirit of the ancient Sith Lord Freedon Nad appeared. Disappointed in Amen's failure to resurrect Sith power, Nad turned his attention to Aleema and Satal, declaring them the true heirs of the Sith legacy. He promised to guide them in building a new Sith empire. With Amen defeated and the Republic now in full control of Isis, the Jedi freed Arcajeth, and in the final moments of the battle, Ulic Qel-Droma delivered the fatal strike to end King Amen's twisted reign. The Crusade begins.
Satal and Aleema, armed with their newfound mastery of Sith magic, fled Onderon aboard an evacuation vessel, carrying with them a cache of ancient Sith artifacts and texts. In the months that followed, they delved deep into the dark side under the tutelage of the ghostly presence of Freedon Nad. While Aleema reveled in the magic aspects of the Sith arts, Satal grew more fascinated by the alchemical side, particularly the creation of poisons that could bring down even the mightiest of foes. With their dark powers honed, the cousins set their sights on a more personal target, their parents. Lord Keto and Lady Magda Keto, the Emperor and Empress of the Titan system, were the next obstacles in their path. As the royal couple oversaw a routine inspection of Empress Teta's carbonite production facility, Satal and Aleema, accompanied by their royal tutor Chorus, arrived unannounced. They stormed the facility, and when Satal confronted his father, Lord Keto demanded an explanation from Chorus for the breach of protocol. But when Chorus tried to answer, the truth became clear. His tongue had been replaced by an Adagan eel, a victim of Sith magic. Aleema revealed their Krath cult and declared themselves the new rulers of the Teton worlds. To solidify their power, Satal forced the Teton officials into the smelter, executing them one by dropping them into vats of molten carbonite, except for Lord Keto. Satal had his father slowly lowered into the metal, encasing him in a carbonite freeze. The once mighty ruler of the Teton system now hung as a silent ornament in the Krath's newly acquired Iron Citadel, the palace at the heart of Sinagar, capital city of the Empress Teton world, while Satal assumed his place as Lord Keto, Emperor. The Krath takeover was brutal, but not without resistance. Rebels in Kirek and the citizens of Empress Teta refused to bow to the Sith-inspired regime. In retaliation, Satal and Aleema used their Sith powers to crush their insurrections. Aleema personally quashed the resistance in Sinagar, while Satal razed Kirek to the ground. Soon, the Galactic Republic took notice of the chaos in the Teton system. A combined fleet of Jedi and Republic forces, led by the Jedi Nomi Sunrider and Jedi advisor Ulic Qel-Droma, was dispatched to confront the Krath. During the ensuing battle, Aleema used her powers to create illusions of starships devouring space grazers, throwing the Republic fleet into disarray. Meanwhile, Satal hypnotized the Krath Chaos starfighter pilots, turning them into suicide bombers. The illusions and kamikaze tactics wreaked havoc, and a Chaos fighter even breached the hull of the Reliance 1, Qel-Droma's flagship, injuring him. However, the Krath victory came at a cost. Aleema, exhausted from the psychic strain, fell unconscious, a victim of Nomi Sunrider's mental assault. While she recuperated, Satal wasted no time planning their next move. Intelligence reports revealed that thousands of Jedi were assembling on the planet Deniba, and Satal saw an opportunity. He secretly inserted one of his Teton warcruisers into orbit around Deniba, filled with Krath war droids concealed in life pods. At the right moment, the droids would emerge, catching the Jedi by surprise. Simultaneously, Satal reprogrammed the Jedi servant droids to turn on their masters, sparking a massacre. The assault was decisive. The Krath droids ravaged the Jedi ranks, and many Jedi died in the chaos, including Master Arkajeth, who was struck down by one of his own droids. Though the droids were eventually neutralized, the cost to the Jedi was severe, and the Krath's influence continued to spread, their dark grip tightening around the Teton system.
Betrayal. The death of Jedi Master Arkajeth was a wound that tore through Ulic Qel-Droma's soul. Once Jeth's apprentice, Ulic had been present when his master was slain, and the grief from that loss festered into an overwhelming need for vengeance. Consumed by guilt and anger, Ulic resolved to infiltrate the Krath, hoping to learn the dark side from them only to later betray them to the Jedi. The Council was horrified by the proposal, but Ulic could no longer be dismayed from his path. After much deliberation, the Council gave him their reluctant blessing. Before Ulic set off on a dangerous mission, Master Odin summoned him for a final lesson. Using a Sith holocron, the ancient Jedi revealed the consuming power of the dark side. Ulic journeyed to Empress Teta, arriving in Sinagar just as Satal and Aleema Keto staged a brutal public execution of local dissenters. In the chaos of the display, a riot broke out, and one of the assailants attempted to assassinate Aleema. Without hesitation, Ulic leapt into action, slaying the would-be murderer and effectively saving her life. The Ketos, however, were not caught off guard. They had orchestrated the riot, knowing Ulic was in the crowd, and used it as a means to draw him to them. Ulic, introducing himself as a fallen Jedi, was welcomed with open arms by Aleema, who praised his timely intervention. She quickly escorted him back to the Iron Citadel, where Satal, though wary, was instructed to continue the executions. Though Satal feigned gratitude, he did not fully trust Ulic's story of defection. Suspicious that Ulic was a Jedi spy, he imprisoned him and began his interrogation. In the depths of the Iron Citadel, Satal subjected Ulic to unspeakable torture, to break his spirit and push him closer to the dark side. Satal injected him with a Sith poison, a potent toxin that not only weakened resistance to the dark side, but intensified rage. Aleema warned that the poison could kill those too weak to resist its effect. But Satal saw it as a test, a way to accelerate Ulic's fall. The poison's impact was immediate. Ulic's anger surged like wildfire, and he broke free from his restraints, crushing the torture droids with a burst of force energy. Satal, pleased by the results, left Aleema to care for the unconscious Jedi, confident that the poison had planted the seeds of darkness deep within him. A hero falls.
Months passed, and Ulic grew closer to the Krath. Aleema, sensing an opportunity, took him as her lover, while Ulic's former Jedi comrades began to grow concerned over his silence. A team of Jedi, led by Nomi Sunrider, was dispatched to find him. With intentions to allow herself to be captured and get close to Ulic, Sunrider used an escape pod to enter Sinagar, hoping to be taken prisoner by the Krath. Her plan succeeded. Sunrider was quickly captured and thrown into the dungeon of the Iron Citadel. Meanwhile, Ulic, now deeply ingratiated with the Krath's operations, was meeting with Satal and Aleema, discussing Republic military secrets and helping them upgrade their weapons with the latest technology. Recognizing his skills, Aleema appointed him warlord of the Krath, placing him in command of all the forces of Empress Teta. Yet Satal's suspicions lingered. He still harbored doubts about Ulic's true loyalties. Those doubts only grew when he received word of another Jedi being captured in Sinagar, further evidence in his mind that Ulic might still be playing both sides. All the while, the Krath continued their campaign across the stars. As tensions escalated within the Krath, Satal Keto confronted Ulic, accusing him of being the herald of a Jedi invasion. To test his loyalty, Satal brought in a captured Nomi Sunrider and demanded to know what should be done with her. Staying in character, Qel-Droma suggested imprisonment for questioning. Satal, however, pushed for her immediate execution. Qel-Droma stalled, claiming he would handle her himself the next day and had her placed in the dungeons. Later, Qel-Droma covertly sent a message to Nomi using a disguised droid, assuring her that his mission was still ongoing and he intended to return to Ossus. But the plan failed. Satal's assistant, Norgor, intercepted the droid and uncovered the message, confirming Satal's suspicions about Qel-Droma's true motives. Enraged, Satal ordered Norgor to assassinate Ulic and bring Sunrider directly to him. That night, Norgor burst into Ulic's chambers, guns blazing, but the Jedi-turned-Sith was ready. Qel-Droma ignited his lightsaber, killing the assassin in front of a stunned Aleema Keto. When she revealed that it was Satal who orchestrated the Jedi massacre on Daniba, Ulic's fury boiled over. He stormed off to confront Satal directly. Meanwhile, Sunrider managed to escape and summoned Qel-Droma and taught Danita. The trio battled through Krath forces and regrouped in the Citadel courtyard, only to be confronted by Satal himself on a balcony, threatening to imprison them all. At that moment, Ulic appeared behind Satal and challenged him to a duel for the murder of Jedi Master Arkajeth. The battle between the two men was fierce. Satal's taunts stoked Ulic's fury, feeding the Sith poison that had been slowly corrupting him since Onderon. Consumed by rage, Ulic struck Satal down. In his dying breath, Satal revealed that the poison had worked. Qel-Droma had fallen to the dark side. Aleema, upon learning of her cousin's death, offered herself and leadership of the Krath to Ulic, cementing his place as their warlord, now fully immersed in the dark side.
Tools of War. The Krath war droid was a formidable instrument of war, an imposing series of battle droids engineered by the Krath, a secretive and sinister order of Darksiders born from the corrupt aristocracy of the Empress Teta system around 4000 BBY. Though their outward design was humanoid, these machines could drop to all fours like beasts, racing across the battlefield with frightening speed. Their gyro-balanced assemblies gave them animalistic agility, enabling them to surprise and overwhelm enemies in calculated shock assaults. Simple to mass produce, yet lethal in large numbers, Krath war droids weren't built for strategy. Their cognitive matrices were limited, tuned solely to identify and destroy the most dangerous threat in their immediate vicinity. Once locked onto a target, they swarmed the relentless focus, cutting down their mark before moving on to the next. This single-minded directive made them ideal for overwhelming opposition through sheer, terrifying force. Each war droid came equipped for both close quarters and long-range combat. At close range, they wielded short swords designed for punishing melee engagements. At distance, their weapon of choice was the pulse wave bow, a deadly device that attenuated induction spines that generated high-energy pulse wave charges. In desperate moments, these same spines could double as skewers or thrusting weapons, turning the bow itself into a spear. Manufactured in the Sinagar foundries, the droid stood approximately 1.8 meters tall, their black sensors always scanning, always calculating. A blade of plating gave them additional durability, allowing them to absorb a surprising amount of punishment before falling. One of their most infamous deployments came in the wake of the Jedi and Galactic Republic's defeat at the Battle of Koros Major in 3997 BBY. In response, the Jedi convened a great assembly on the planet Daniba. 10,000 Jedi Masters and Knights gathered in unity, but the Krath saw an opportunity to strike. Through infiltration and sabotage, Krath agents corrupted the programming of the servant droids attending the convocation. Meanwhile, a Teton Corsair orbited above, carrying 100 modified life pods, each one housing a single Krath war droid. Midway through the gathering, chaos erupted. The compromised servant droids turned on their Jedi Masters, creating confusion and panic. Then, from the sky, the Corsair released its pod. They struck the ground like meteorites, and from the craters emerged the war droids, charging forward at blistering speed, pulse wave bows blazing. Many Jedi fell in the onslaught. Among the defenders was Jedi Master Arca-Jeth, drawing on techniques he had developed during the Great Droid Revolution. He managed to short-circuit several of the attackers using the Force, but even he could not hold them all back. Struck down in a storm of plasma, Arca-Jeth became one of the many casualties of the Daniba massacre. Though the Jedi ultimately survived the assault, the cost was devastating. In time, the tide turned. The Jedi and the Republic rallied, eventually defeating the Krath along with their Sith and Mandalorian allies. But the legacy of the Krath war droid would not be buried with them. Centuries later, its design would echo through galactic history, a terrifying mechanical frame of Chimean Jai Shalil, transformed into the cyborg, General Grievous. was based on the Krath war droid. Grievous's elite IG-100 Magna Guards bore similar features, both in movement and combat prowess. Even during the Galactic Civil War, the Krath war droid's shell lived on, repurposed for the mysterious NK project, an Imperial attempt to build advanced combat droids, repurposing the ancient technology.
Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. This is Christian.
And this is Jordan.
We're currently exploring the beautiful Great Library of Sinagar, capital of the Empress Teta planet, which is now an ecumenopolis, but wasn't always. So,
yeah, I'm definitely excited to read some books of secret societies. I love secret societies,
secret knowledge.
Nothing like, some Illuminati, Freemason, craft
type activities.
Conspiracy theories.
Yes.
They still exist. They never went away.
The Krath were always there. They're pulling the strings of the government.
Yeah.
And then it turns out they actually were the whole time. Yes.
But before we get into that, we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping here. So if you want to support the show, Patreon membership is only $3 a month. And with that, you get access to all the bonus episodes. We also have a $5 tier, which you will get access to not only bonus episodes, but ad-free episodes. We also accept Bitcoin or single donations on PayPal, and we are selling some merch on Redbubble. So check out all that stuff. The links are in the description of the show, wherever you are listening. If you cannot support financially, absolutely not a problem. No pressure whatsoever. But one way you could support us is if you give us a rate and review on the show. That helps push us out in the algos, and that's very much appreciated. If you guys want to reach out to us, absolutely feel free to reach out. We are on Discord, Instagram, X, and Facebook. And we also have an email, starlordspodcast@gmail.com. And you can just look up, if you just keyword search Star Lords or Star Lords Podcasts on any of those platforms, you should find us. Otherwise, again, links are in the descriptions. And as always, don't forget to send us your collections, fan fictions, in-universe ads, or any corrections or comments on any of the episodes. In regards to comments, the YouTube comments, the Spotify comments are a lot less likely to get read on the show. If you actually DM us or send us an email, we are far more likely to actually discuss that. We just don't always check the comments that regularly. So if you wanted a comment that you wanted to, or a discussion point that you wanted us to discuss, much better to email or DM us. So with all that, let's get back into it.
Yeah, we're continuing in the sagas, the ancient tales of the galaxy, tales of the Jedi era, the old Sith Wars. Overall, it's a lot of these stories come from those comic books, the Tales of Jedi comic book series. They, before the title was unceremoniously ripped off by current Disney products that go under the Tales of the Jedi moniker. But yeah, we're talking thousands of years in the past still. This is kind of the next step to our Onderon series that we've been going through, where we have, and we're looping back into Empress Teta. So for listeners who are paying attention to names and places, we covered in quite a few episodes back about the Great Hyperspace War, and it kind of served as almost this like it's almost like the Coruscant of the ancient Republic. It's a very powerful world. It's the center of like a lot of politicking that affects the galaxy at large.
Yeah.
And we have the royal family essentially overthrown internally by a young prince and his cousin, and who enact their Sith cultish behavior and their pursuit of forbidden knowledge.
Yeah, it's a fun time. There are some interesting echoes of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
In this story, particularly with like Ulic Qel-Droma.
Yeah, and the Dark Empire novel, when Luke Skywalker kind of treads the path of the dark side and tries to defeat the dark side from within.
Yeah.
We have a very similar story being kind of echoed with Ulic Qel-Droma. And we'll see it again with some other prominent Star Wars characters. This is a reoccurring, one of those recurring story beats.
Do you feel like it's a little overused?
It's tough to say because at least on the timeline of the galaxy, these instances happen far enough between that.
No, that's true. But in real world, these stories are written like
it could be because
it was written once, and then
Yes.
it seems to like people are borrowing that.
Yeah, exactly. They like
plot
the
point,
idea,
yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do that with my characters too."
Yeah.
I think and I'm about to get into it with this one. I think this version of it is actually an interesting deviation from it.
Okay.
In that,
Why is that?
When Luke quote unquote falls to the dark side, he doesn't really fall. Like his plan is always to come back.
Right.
And he does, it gets sketchy, even the reader's kind of left hanging of like, is he or isn't he actually fallen?
Yeah.
But he's got some pretty strong anchors like Leia that pull him back from the brink.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ulic, as we will find out in future episodes, does not have those kind of safety anchors to keep him clinging to the light. And he himself as a character is much less I don't want to say heroic. Heroic is probably the wrong word, but a lot less like pure-hearted as Luke Skywalker is.
Yeah.
So the temptation to defeat the dark side from within actually kind of fails, and he does end up getting consumed by it. So I at least appreciate that it's the same story but different outcomes,
Right.
Which is enough of a difference to keep it interesting.
There is one point I thought was kind of interesting with how he was written, this whole mission to intentionally fall to the dark side. This was like approved by the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
Which in most other stories, like anytime anytime a rogue Jedi wants to go on some war or misadventure or what have you,
the council's
the council
trying to be wise
is almost
like,
universally against
that's a
it.
bad idea.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't do that.
Except in this one instance, which is interesting. I like that they deviate from that. The council of this era is like begrudgingly willing to do it, and I wonder why that is. Now I hadn't read the source material on this. I wonder if there's some more elaboration on that.
Yeah, I do. I did read the source material, but it was quite a while ago. But you are dealing with a different time and a different set of rules. This group of Jedi are a lot less dogmatic than a lot of the councils we'll see in other instances. During this era, Jedi are allowed to get married. Jedi don't have the same kind of stringent orthodoxies that later Jedi councils will have, and again, like that's a double-edged sword of like, sometimes that orthodoxy backfires on them too, right? Where they're too strict and bad things end up happening. That happens both during Knights of the Old Republic and later on during the Twilight of the Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the case of Luke Skywalker, when he decides to turn to the dark side, like he is the Grand Master of the Jedi. Like there is no one else. So he's kind of self-approving of taking on this incredible risk.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is definitely kind of an interesting.
It speaks to a broader narrative story too, of like the classic fighting fire with fire.
Right.
We even have that turn of phrase that people know what you mean when you say that, right?
Yeah.
Of using the dark side against the dark side, using the enemy's tactics against the enemy. And different stories, like as a moral story, will oftentimes portray that as a bad thing. Same with a lot of the revenge trope. Like you always see the hero has a bad guy, and maybe the bad guy wronged the hero in some way, like killed someone really close to the hero, and the hero chooses not to kill him because revenge is not, is not the right answer. You'll feel empty.
Yeah.
Like you see these same story elements. You see them in like Westerns. You'll see them in sci-fi. You'll see them in fantasy. They just kind of repeat as, arguably, I wouldn't say a modern mythic kind of story beat, but I can see where that argument could be made. And again, this is what this story archetype is that fighting fire with fire. And what comes of that? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Using the enemy's tactics against them? Does that make you as bad as the enemy? Does that make you the same as them? Does that justify you to fight fire with fire? What they've done to you and your people? So,
yeah, and you could also see like there's kind of this, I don't know how to say it, like a tactical disadvantage, especially with the Krath, because they are a secretive society or a secret society, and it like how do you infiltrate that and actually get valuable information?
Yeah,
unless you join them.
Yeah,
right. Like you actually have to get someone on the inside
to even break this thing open.
Yeah, exactly. So like, so you're not fighting blind anymore, right? So I could actually reason myself without even reading the actual story.
There you go.
Like,
you're fit enough to be a Jedi, Jedi Master on the council, Jordan.
They will allow me on the council, but they do not grant
me the rank of master.
But
yeah, certainly. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just throwing it out there, right? Like a lot of different stories take that to different levels. Some stories will say, no, you shouldn't fight fire with fire. Other stories, the whole point is to fight fire with fire. Mm-hmm. It allows the hero to unleash his abilities to fight fire with fire. So yeah, any way you cut it, you can take it different directions. Is ultimately what I'm getting at with that.
I do like the whole concept of the Krath myself, like secret societies in real world in our universe. I've always had kind of a fascination with secret societies and fraternal orders and whatnot.
Not that you're part of any.
Yeah, no, I'm actually not, but I've always fantasized about creating my own. So if anyone out there wants to join me in my own secret society,
Sith cult.
Yeah. Cults also fascinate me as well, but there is it. I do like that they play that this is like an elite cult. This isn't just like, commoners, like the People's Temple or Waco or the Branch Davidians, like a bunch of poors,
social outcasts or outliers. Like these are the powerful, the in-group of society. We touched on that briefly, with Onderon too. They had as a very similar.
And like again, we look in the real world, and even like we're Canadians, and many of our prime ministers have been Freemasons, and many presidents have been Freemasons, and like Washington, D.C. was like largely designed by Freemasons with...
Well, who else are you going to get to build? They literally got Mason in the name.
And I don't think Freemasonry had like the same kind of stigma it does today. There is more of that today, but it is interesting. And every now and again, you kind of get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain with like some really crazy, bizarre stuff that people are involved in. I think about things like the WikiLeaks emails from like guys like John Podesta, who is engaged in all sorts of bizarre, like sort of occult behavior. There was like that child essay scandal that broke out in Belgium, I believe, in like the mid-90s, and a bunch of the monarchy were involved in very bizarre ritualistic essay. And this wasn't like, I know there's a lot of conspiracies about that, but you can go back and read.
Yeah, like there's actually documented.
And people went to jail for it and stuff too, right? Like you can go back and it's always like fast. It kind of like, it's like, whoa, these people are involved in that kind of like crazy weird stuff. But so it's sort of believable, right? Like it does happen.
It rings true because we've seen it in real life.
So I do like the introduction of something like the Krath into the story.
Yeah, certainly it is. It's not always super clear. Especially Tales of the Jedi came out first in comic book form. Then I know there's an audio book or telling of it. I don't know that there's necessarily a novelization of it, however. But But it is always hard in those formats to kind of flesh out the strength. I'm always about kind of like the military power side of it. Like, okay, how big are these forces? What are we actually dealing with? We know, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that Empress Teta is actually, a very powerful world, and to be, a monarch in that world grants you with a lot of power just by default.
Yeah.
But it's not totally clear. Like, they're obviously strong enough to challenge the Republic and the Jedi. So, like, what that translates to in terms of manpower, and what that translates into, what they supplement their manpower with, which are the Krath war droids.
Yeah.
Which are actually very cool looking. I encourage our listeners to go look them up online. They're very like skeletal robot looking.
Yeah.
Almost like a sleek Terminator, I would say. It's kind of the vibe I get.
Yeah.
But on that note too, they've been retroactively used as some of the inspiration behind General Grievous's exoskeleton. And then the I forget what it's called, the NK project, that the Empire will eventually also adopt. So it's again one of those through lines where aesthetically they try to also kind of create an origin story, like it or hate it. Oftentimes this stuff does backfire. It's kind of like the midichlorian thing.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting observation.
Yeah, and I mean these things were a lot scarier than even like an IG droid.
Yeah.
Like these things were menacing.
Yes, and they're killing Jedi.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, like a lot more intimidating, I think, than even a lot of the battle droids that we see in all the films.
Clone Wars,
right?
And,
yeah. So yeah, definitely check them out. They really like pump them up to be scary. And I almost wonder, like, are they more advanced than the future battle droids that we see? Like
they are. I think it comes down to
like 4,000 years later, right?
Yeah. It's not so much like a question of advanced. Again, we've had this conversation too around the stagnancy of technology in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But also like the way war is conducted. You can kind of do two strategies: invest in very strong elite troops that are very costly, but one for one they're valuable,
Right.
or pump out mass production but cheaply made and just overwhelm your enemy with numbers.
Trade Federation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that really just translates to two different styles of war making.
Clone army.
Yeah, rather than like it's not that the
That's true.
Federation couldn't invest in something, but it'd just be so costly. It's like, why bother? Let's just drown them in bodies, right? And especially when you're fighting a war at that scale for that length of time. The Krath event really takes place over a year, it seems like. Whereas like the Clone Wars goes over many years and tons of planets. The Krath Crusade does engulf a number of planets, but again, they're kind of sketchy on the numbers. Like, is this a galaxy spanning conflict? Is it just like the core worlds that are pulled into this? Is that the core and the mid rim, right? Like, we know it's bigger than what we're seeing on the page, but they never say how big is, right?
Right.
And that, again, that can go two ways. With the Clone Wars, oftentimes you see numbers and you're like, that's way too small.
Yeah.
For a galaxy spanning war, and then other times you see numbers like that's way too many.
Yeah.
So you can shoot yourself in the foot both ways by being too detailed, and you end up one clone trooper per planet scales, and that's not enough. Or you get too crazy with your numbers, or you get too vague, with the numbers, and no one really knows. Okay, what is the level of a threat we're actually dealing with here?
Yeah.
It's kind of left to the discernment of the reader. Yeah, so mileage may vary on that point. Last thing I just kind of want to discuss a little bit. For anyone really involved in the deep lore of Star Wars, the name Keto actually also comes up with another character during Anakin Skywalker's fall and the Purge of the Jedi Temple. In the Star Wars Episode 3 video game adaptation, you encounter Sarah Keto. She's an acolyte of Sindralig, who's a well-renowned, if not one of the best lightsaber duelists. He trains, that's his specialty, he's like the duelist trainer, based off of Nick Gillard, who was the actual stuntman sword fighter coordinator for the movies, for the prequels. So they made him a character in universe, and he's like a Jedi trainer. Anyway, Sarah is like one of his best students, and obviously carries the last name Keto. her first name too, Sarah, spelt Serra, does kind of sound like Aleema or Satal. Like the name itself sounds like it could be from Empress Teta or like the same culture. You know, when names kind of like sound like they go together, come from the same place.
Yeah.
There is nothing in canon or legends that explicitly creates a link between these characters, and these characters are separated by thousands of years of history. But yeah, it's just an interesting note. And the question is, you know, is it possible she's some kind of distant relation or distant descendant? Is that an interesting story beat? It oftentimes makes a galaxy seem small when every named character has like an interesting and important ancestor.
Yeah.
I like that they don't draw any conclusions. Oftentimes people can have the same last name with no actual biological relations.
Sure. Yeah.
And sometimes the reverse is also true. When you talk about ancestry, sometimes a lot of people end up being related just by virtue of the exponential growth of generational growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you end up with situations like every president is related to, I can't remember what ancestor. Some British monarch, I believe, is like related to almost every president that's ever been,
yeah.
except for one, I think.
There is actually a study in like genetics that where it's possible, even over a relatively short period of time, like a couple thousand years, where like one patriarch or matriarch can actually be like the progenitor of like billions of people.
Yes.
It's like crazy. That you could connect that many people to like one person, you know, but yeah, it does happen.
Well, and that's exactly my point, is that it's due to this effect. So people often make it out to be like a big conspiracy.
Right.
Yeah. Like, oh, you know, obviously they're
really
been in
protecting
power.
their
right,
bloodlines,
exactly.
Yeah.
When really it's just a numbers game. And
right.
Once you hit a certain level of exponential growth, like, yeah, you're going to be ended up related to a lot of people.
Yeah.
When you go far enough down the generational chain.
Yeah. And it doesn't take long either.
No, exactly. Just with the rate that people reproduce, and the, you know, if you have 10 people in a room and they all reproduce,
hockey stick curve, man.
Right.
on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, kind of speaking to that note, like, yeah, if your ancestors like hundreds of thousands of years in the past of Star Wars, it's possible that just by virtue of that factor, you are actually distantly related, but so is a lot of other people.
Sure.
And then the other interesting note is of the naming scheme. Again, like, names don't always indicate relations, in the sense of like how that name was acquired. Different cultures have different ways of passing down names. You can have patrilineal names, matrilineal names, both names in different societies, both in the real world and in Star Wars. Your last name could be a function of your occupation. You know, that's why there's so many Smiths out there that aren't necessarily related. It's just like, oh, that was the Smith of the village, and eventually that became acquired as like a surname. So, you know, when you're talking galaxy levels, like Keto could just be a common name or word that gets adopted to be someone's surname. So all that, just literally the fact that she has a name that sounds like these two, but there is no direct link between them. Just while I'm on the name note, there was a canceled, I think we've mentioned it before, a canceled Star Wars novel called Alien Exodus that tried to explain like the origins of humanity in Star Wars and link it to the real world. Like, humans came from Earth, and this is what happened. And there's a lot of crazy,
I'd love to read this.
a lot of crazy stuff in that book. I'm kind of glad they didn't publish it, to be honest.
I want to see a draft.
We'll have to do so. A lot of it has come out over the years.
Oh, has it? Okay.
I don't know if like the hard text of it has come out, but or the ideas.
We should like do a reading of
if we can dig something up on it. Yeah. But in any case,
a fun bonus episode.
Yeah, they did try to explain the origin of the Skywalker name, because, again, as I was saying, you have like a lot of characters that do have like distant ancestors that get their names.
Yeah.
Down the
Well,
line.
it almost died with Shmi.
Right, and that's what I was gonna say, is we don't actually have any other Skywalkers, in the past of Shmi.
Yeah,
like, we don't have an ancient
we
Skywalker.
haven't heard of them anyways.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's especially strange with Star Wars' obsession with carrying these names through.
Right.
But Skywalker being like probably the most central, the most sacred name, doesn't.
Yeah.
So there's no like ancient Skywalker ancestor that we are aware of. So anyways, this book tried to explain that and tried to give the origin to an ancient Jedi who used the Force to levitate and hence would acquire the name Skywalker.
Okay, yeah.
Would kind of make sense.
Yeah.
But do we want to do that? Do we want to explain every detail into...
I mean, it's not canon. It would be a fun read just to see what their ideas they had.
Yeah,
kind
there's a lot of crazy
bouncing around
ideas
their heads.
in this book. That one's not the worst of it, but it does feed back into the whole like, oh yeah, everyone's related and everyone's important and only these certain family lines matter. And it just makes the galaxy seem very small.
Right.
When it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about all I got on the Krath Holy Crusade. We'll definitely be checking in with this era a little more in the future. And hope you're enjoying going for a ride and exploring the characters of Ulic Qel-Droma.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we head out, just a reminder, make sure you rate and review the show. Follow us on all the social medias. And if you want to become a supporting member, patreon.com/StarLords. And you can support the show there. But with all that, thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you next time.